There is something major, though, about this Logan Paul case that I would like to touch on that would make me not want to touch it with your 10-foot pole. And when it comes to antiques and collectibles, and like it or not, believe it or not, this is the world that we are in. We are in the world of antiques and collectibles. There is one thing. If you listen, if you're going to take anything from this video, take this from this video. There is one thing when it comes to authenticating antiques and collectibles, and that is provenance. Provenance. It's like buying a house. Location, location, location. Antiques and collectibles, provenance, provenance, provenance. What is the story of that particular item? Where did it come from? Who's had it? Mic check, 1 2 1 2. What's up, everybody? I came in today pumped and jazzed, psyched, ready to go off on that Logan Paul case. Prove it was a fake. First off, I'm Clay, Cardboard Empires. Welcome back. If you're not yet, subscribe to the channel. Hit subscribe. We are flirting with, I think, 1,000 or somewhere in there. So let's get those numbers up. We could do it. I was going to go off, prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that that case was fake. But I don't know if it is. My evidence for this was going to be the label. The label looked off to me. Now, the label that I remember being on WotC cases is the same label that you could see Real King Pokemon. He has a half-sealed case. And it has the label on it that I remember being on those WotC cases. And I thought, wait, I have a WotC. I have a Wizards of the Coast case from around that era, not Pokemon, in my house. So I went up and grabbed it. I was like, yeah, I know that these labels are supposed to look like this. I was wrong. This is a Harry Potter Quidditch Cup booster box. And much to my disappointment, the label looks a lot fresher. The font, the kerning, the spacing, it's got that kind of newer look to it. I've had Harry Potter Quidditch Cup cases in the past with that old style label on it, with like that really big font, that wide spacing, the big stretched out looking label. And this is what I got now. And it made me think, it made me realize that I was falling into the same trap that a lot of other people were falling into. That when it comes to manufactured consumer goods, these things aren't produced all at the same time or all at the same place by the same machines. There's variations, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, across product runs. Let's say even that all first edition Shadowless Pokemon booster boxes were made at the same time in the same place. The manufacturers, the distributors that they use for cardboard boxes, who knows how many different variations of cardboard boxes they've used. The manufacturers, distributors for the heat transfer labels. The manufacturers that they use for the label printers, the model numbers. There are so many places for variation to creep into this equation that it really doesn't make a lot of sense to try and scrutinize a cardboard box. Now, I have heard some of the criticisms. What's his name? I think his name is Rattle Pokemon. That's his channel. Really good in-depth videos about this whole topic. But I just don't know if there's enough there. Me personally, I wouldn't touch it with your 10-foot pole, but when we go into these things, we have to kind of go into them as if we're lawyers or as if we're in the criminal justice system. We have to presume innocence and try to prove guilt. We have to try to presume that these boxes, that these products are real, and then try to prove that they're not. I think a lot of people went into this, because of Logan Paul, and nobody really likes him, especially not in the Pokemon world, which I don't know why. I mean, he's been one of the best things for Pokemon ever. But he is kind of a brash, I guess, personality, and people don't like that. So they went into this with the assumption that this thing was fake, and they're trying to bolster that claim by proving that. And I don't think that's the best way to do it. I will say that when it comes to authenticating cardboard boxes, I don't think they went the best route with this. There are a handful of people in this world that I would trust personally to authenticate a Wizards of the Coast, a late 90s Wizards of the Coast cardboard box. And whether or not that can even really be done. I can't even believe that there are companies out there that are willing to put their name, put their reputation on the line to authenticate a cardboard box. When it comes to faking things, people are immaculately faking extremely detailed cards with very, very intricate printing patterns. How hard do you think it's going to be when they're willing to go to those lengths for a $100 card? How hard do you think it's going to be to fake a cardboard friggin' box for $3.5 million? And a company is going to put their friggin' reputation on that. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? But there are a handful of people who, if I came across a First Ed Shadowless, if I came across any WotC era Pokemon box, there are a handful of people that I would personally trust to take it to. And those are not Pokemon people. There are some Pokemon people who I think are competent in this area, but the people that I would go to first are Magic people, Magic the Gathering people, the people who have been like somebody like Rudy, maybe Professor, I don't know, but Rudy, he's been more public and vocal about how much product he's gone through and seen. And that's what it comes down to. You have to be the guy. Like when it comes to authenticating Pokemon cards, you have to be the guy who's touched, who's held, who's looked at a million Pokemon cards. It doesn't matter if you can go online and look at an eBay listing and look at the font and the kerning and the spacing. You have to be the guy who has held in his hand the Pokemon card a million times. That's why I would trust Magic the Gathering people. You have to be the guy who has held, or the girl, who has held a WotC case in their hands a million times. And even then, I think if you went to Rudy and you were like, hey, Rudy, can you authenticate this box of Pokemon card, this sealed case of Pokemon cards? He'd probably tell you something along the lines of, hey, I'll look at it for a fee, but I can't promise anything. I could tell you what I think. I could tell you if there's something looks off, if something looks right. But at the end, I'm not going to stamp, I'm not going to rubber stamp anything. I mean, it's a box. What do you want me to do with a box? I almost cursed there, but I stopped, right? You heard me stop. I'm pretty sure I stopped. There is something major, though, about this Logan Paul case that I would like to touch on that would make me not want to touch it with your 10-foot pole. And when it comes to antiques and collectibles, and like it or not, believe it or not, this is the world that we are in. We are in the world of antiques and collectibles. There is one thing. If you're going to take anything from this video, take this from this video. There is one thing when it comes to authenticating antiques and collectibles, and that is provenance. Provenance. It's like buying a house. Location, location, location. Antiques and collectibles, provenance, provenance, provenance. What is the story of that particular item? Where did it come from? Who's had it? And when I watched, what's his name? Scratch Pokemon. I said it the right way a few minutes ago. I can't remember what. Scramble Pokemon, something like that. In his videos, he talks about the provenance a little bit, and it sounds horrific. It sounds like a fucking nightmare. And I don't know if any of this is true. Okay, I have not done any research. The only thing I know is from that video about the provenance. I haven't looked at all into it. But if this case came into my shop and these were the stories attached to this case, I would throw it out into the parking lot and set it on fire. It's a nightmare. First of all, this case was showed as an eBay listing for like 90,000 USD a year ago. Bing, first red flag. Second red flag is the stories attached to this case. I guess the seller, and this is allegedly, I have no idea if this is true, but this was what was reported in that video. The seller first said that they went to an estate sale with his sister, and as he was mulling about smoking a cigarette, he almost tripped over some Pokemon cards in a box on the ground, and right next to it was a sealed case with all of the paperwork authenticating it on top. Goodbye. If you're in my shop with that story, goodbye. See you later. That's not how life works. Bye. And I think maybe he knew that was the issue, because allegedly what was reported in that video, the story then changed to, I had this case since I was 12 years old. That is a little bit more of a reasonable story. I would still like a little bit more detail when it comes to that provenance, but that's a little bit more reasonable. But this idea that you're at an estate sale and on the ground mixed with a bunch of hockey cards and Pokemon cards is a conveniently sealed first edition shadowless case with all of the paperwork sitting on top of it. It's unfathomably stupid, that story. Anybody, I don't know if this has ever happened. Maybe people have found these types of cases at estate sales. I would highly doubt it. Anybody with a case of Pokemon cards, anybody would know what to do with that case. You got that case. You went through the steps to acquire that case, which means you know what you have. Now, maybe they don't realize what the market is doing. Maybe they bought it 20 years ago for a couple $100, and they don't understand. That's conceivable, but they know that card shops exist. They know that eBay exists. They know that there are people who exist that deal in these things. You don't acquire a case of Pokemon cards and not know that thing and have all of the paperwork sitting on top. You know a thing or two about the Pokemon hobby if this bundle exists. I wouldn't believe that story at all. The idea that you've had this case since you were 12 years old, that's, again, I guess a little bit more reasonable, but another story where I would say, you got to pepper in some details to make me feel a little bit better about this. Otherwise, goodbye. All in all, the people involved in this transaction are competent people. The Pokaju, as far as I'm aware, competent person. I don't know much about him. I know he has a large social media presence, which doesn't necessarily make you a competent person, but a lot of people trust him, so it must be something there, right? If the light's on somebody's home, I guess is what I'm saying. They sent it, I don't know if it was Logan Paul. Somebody sent it out to a card or an authentication company who shrink wrapped it. And I guess when it's all said and done, at least somebody's going to be liable. Somebody's on the hook, because although the sports card company, and that was another thing in the video, the sports card company doesn't seem to think that they have any liability. We don't guarantee anything. You shrunk wrap that box. You put your logo all over that box. When that box is opened up and they find fossil booster boxes inside, you might not have some sort of company policy that guarantees, that you guarantee the authenticity of that box. But guess who's going to get their butts sued into the ground? You don't need a company policy to guarantee that your authentications are legitimate. You don't need it. You're offering the service, which means that you are rubber stamping its authenticity. And if it turns out to not be authentic, you're on the hook. So you better have liability insurance and errors and omissions, because somebody's going to come after your butt. Which, again, is why I would never, ever presume And I think it's reasonable to say that, because if you look at Gary, King Pokemon, he has a half-open case. Why does he have a half-opened case? Because you need to open the fucking thing to find out what's inside. Being that it's half open, you can see that what is in there, what should be in there is in there, but it also shows that hopefully shows that nothing was taken out. So it's half open to inspect the contents, but it's half sealed to show that the contents haven't been removed or tampered with. Not a perfect system, but okay, pretty good. I hope that this turns out to be legitimate. It's a fun story. It would be nice to see more box breaks. You know, it would be great all around for the hobby. I have my doubts. Let's put it that way. Thanks for watching as always. Sorry about the background. I got my stores in disarray right now. I just set up my Warhammer display, so that's pretty cool. I mean, Warhammer's pretty cool. But as always, I will catch you later.